everyone. Thank you, Sonia, for inviting me to share my passionate interest in developing people through a program. This is my second time in a program, and to be honest, I'm still pretty nervous. But I'm glad that you're here to join me for the next at least 30 to 45 minutes, sharing my interest in today's topic. Let me first share a little bit about myself. My name is Amy, and together with my husband, Timothy, we run a training company in Singapore helping career practitioners in career development programs within their organizations. We also train people to use career assessment tools that we carry for Asia. And we also carry and represent profiling tools that help personal and professional development. Along the way, we have also brought in coaching tools that help these group of career practitioners to enhance and upgrade their skills so they can bring a more impactful work into the marketplace. So overall, we actually have a few business presence in Asia, namely in Philippines, Vietnam, Hong Kong, Macau, China, Thailand, Cambodia, Australia, New Zealand, even Indonesia. So why I'm sharing all that is that at the end of today's session, if you'd like to find out more on how you can apply what you've heard today, or you'd like to learn more about the work I am doing, then get in touch with me because I have someone in your country who probably can support you. So a little bit more about my company. We provide career coaching services, career management services, training, consultancy work, and certification program for individuals and organizations. So in the course of providing all this form of training and interventions for our clients, we realize there is one commonality that is very hard for us to manage or to overcome. That is the mindset. So in our journey in helping people to learn new skills and new training, we also discovered there is a need for people to understand more about expanding their points of view or to able to shift away from a certain point of view or certain perspective that they have. So as we search for new interventions or new techniques to help our clients and to help our students, I came across a process that I will share with you today. So this is a nutshell of what the kind of work we do in abundance consulting. So enough about who I am and where I come from. So let's go into today's topic proper. As a preamble, let me share with you some information, or perhaps you already know this information. Do you know that 48.5% of the world's population own a cell phone or a smartphone? We're talking about 3.8 billion people. And out of these 3.8 billion people, 1 billion of them are Instagram users, and almost every one of them are Facebook users. I'm not sure which country you're from, and probably you have a handle of those information for your country because social media is so big and is one of the biggest growing technology and also business platform, communication platform. So we're talking about 3.8 billion people constantly consuming, producing visual contents every second of the day. So even as I'm talking right now, we know that there are billion of people right now looking at a cell phone, looking at the Instagram. Does anyone like the recent post? Or what is the latest update in the Facebook or Twitter? So almost more than, well, I would say close to 50% of these users visit these social media platforms more than once a day. So why am I saying all that? It's just these statistics imply that humans are naturally attracted to visual content. So in my program, or at least in my section, I'm going to bring you through a 2-part journey to know more about the power of images, recognize the cognitive process, and the application of photos as a developmental tool. So the title of this 2-part series is called Phototherapy as a Coaching Tool. For the first part is titled, Are You Using Photos the Right Way? I will establish in today's session why we could benefit. When I say we, I'm referring to educators, coaches, even parents, or a friend. How we could benefit by paying more attention to using visual or photos in our practice or in our communication. In the second part, I will touch on how can we use photos in your session. It could be your teaching session, it could be in your conversation with your clients, or it could be your counseling client as well. So how has it been used, which I will share in the next session, and how it had been used for different purposes and with different groups of people, and the impact through using photos. We will also learn about photo observations and using photo-based questions through an experiential activity. So my presentation will be as hands-on as possible, even though this is a recorded session. But I suggest for you to go aside now and take a pen and a notebook and sit down with me for the next 30 to 40 minutes and just take note of some of this insight I'm going to share with you, and hopefully that could maybe challenge you or inspire you to include phototherapy as part of your coaching tool. So let's go. All right, so I'm going to invite you to take a look at this photo. Observe this photo. Observe the actions, observe the images, the activities, or maybe the even expressions found in this photo. How would you describe this photo? Take a moment and think about it. What would you say when I ask the question, how would you describe this photo? Perhaps you might think about the kind of emotions that aroused in you by looking at this photo, simply because maybe it reminds you of something, or maybe you're involved in that sport, so it says something to you. There is a saying, a photo is worth 1,000 words. So imagine a journalist, instead of describing the jubilation of a touchdown, he used this photo to express that emotion or that captured a moment. So basically, an image can be used to convey emotions, thoughts, maybe certain event or situation more impactfully. We're going to cover in part 1 of this journey how photos can be used for information and cognitive processing. Photos can be used for enhancing your engagement with emotional response. And lastly, photos can be used for constructs of meaning. So these are the 3 key areas that I'll be covering for today. The brain can see images that last for just 13 milliseconds. Do you know how fast that is? But we can capture images that fast. And our eyes can register 30,000 visual messages per hour. We can get a sense of a visual scene in less than 1/10 of a second. And 90% of information transmitted to the brain is visual. So visuals are processed 60,000 times faster in the brain than text. So what I'm saying, it indicates that human beings process visual information more efficiently than text. But can you register all the statistics that I've shared now? How about I show you the data graphically in this presentation? Would the data be clearer to you now compared to what I've articulated before? So through this diagram, 90% of the information that's gone to our brain is through our eyes. And we have 70% of our sensory receptor basically around your eyeballs or your retina. So we are absorbing, we are receiving so much information through this part of our senses. And when you are processing a photo, like I showed you before, 50% of your brain is active. So we are really using a lot of our cognitive and our neurons, during this part of just looking at these photos and looking at this diagram that I've showed you right now. So we're basically 65% of a population is visual learners. And I belong to that category as well. When we present information and through a written form like a text, we are only receiving, or the end user will only retain certain portion of the information. So the big idea is we actually receive more, retain more through a visual content. So at this moment, I'd like you to think about, maybe pen down some quick thoughts. If you're leading a group of people, how can you incorporate this information into your communication with them? If you're a teacher, how can you enhance the use of visual to connect with your students? Think about it. Now I present you a question. How would you resolve the conflicting expectations of your student client and his parents? So if you're confronted with this challenge, what are the steps you would take to approach it? Think about it and reflect on your thinking process. Do you use more of your analytical approach to resolve this issue? Meaning, oh, step one, I'll do this. Maybe I'll talk to the child first, or I'll talk to the parents separately. It has a very logical approach to it. Or would you choose a more freestyle to face both parties? Or just come up with me, I'll see what it goes. No, so what would your inclination be when you are posed with a question, a challenge in your daily life? It is established that cognitive processes in our brains, perhaps in this case, I will just simplify into the right brain and the left brain in this manner. Our education system has inculcated in us a very systematic and logical approach in facing questions or facing challenges, be it a work or relationship. We tend to be more logical and in a process. So if we look at the left brain, or people who are more left brain dominant, you tend to be more logical. You tend to think in problems or questions in a linear form, and there is a sequence in your approach to problem solving. You probably think in words as well. So when you are given a question, you probably write down in a verb or written form in text on things to do, what you have to approach. So that's your approach if you're a left-brained dominant person. And whereas if you are a more right-brained, then you tend to be more out of the box kind of person. You are creative, you're imaginative, and you look at things in a very more holistic way as well. Perhaps you like to do mind mapping or just draw or doodle. Most of the time, you catch yourself doodling or daydreaming. You are connected with emotions, your feelings as well. So this is a very simple form of segregation between a left brain and a right brain dominant person. However, if we are presented with a visual stimulus, we suspend our logical left brain and we are using the right brain, the creative part and the associative part to engage with the medium, with the form or the media. So imagine any individual who is granted the chance to engage with both sides of the brain. The possibilities are tremendous. I'll call this process the cerebral tango. I have allowed short moments of confrontation with this image. What do you see first? The person or the text? Visuals cause a faster and stronger reaction than words. When I saw the picture, I was wondering, what did this child go through? Or maybe even going through now? When I read the words, he has his mother's eyes, it even deepens the emotions that I felt because there are so many meaning attached to those texts. Visuals help viewers engage with the content, and such emotional reactions influence the way we retained information. So, in this case, when we look at this picture, the emotion aroused in us, plus the words, has created a certain feeling and thoughts around arising from this. So our visual memory is actually encoded in the medial temporal lobe of our brain, the same place where our emotions are processed. The brain is set up in such a way that visual stimuli like this one and our emotional response are easily linked, and together the two form memories. A negative visual depiction like this one are particularly useful for leaving a strong emotional impression. So I would say MST has done a good job through this advertisement. So visual can cause an emotional reaction. Let's have another short activity. I'd like to bring you into a reflection exercise on social responsibility. Pen down your instinctive reaction to this photo. What are the types of emotion you can register through the subjects in the photos? What is your personal emotion? How does this photo define social responsibility for you? Do you have to read the small text to understand the underlying message in this photo? Why do you think the texts were designed so small in this advertisement? So without giving you a context or giving you I guess, an article, writings about the setting, or maybe a description on why this photo was actually featured in the newspaper. The visual representation is more than enough to drive home a message. Why is this important? Let's recap. We know that we process faster and better with visual content, specifically photos. And when we face with visual content, we are utilizing our right brain, the creative part, the more out of the box process. We are able to think freely and more associatively. Photos also engage our emotional level. So let's remember these 3 points while I go into the next part 3 of are we using photo the right way? When we look at the photos or any photo, we actually view them through a filtered lens. The lens carries memories of everything that has happened to us up to that moment in time. We are looking at the familiarity of the photo. It could be an action, it could be color, it could be the environment the photo is taken, and we process it through our head, through our brain. Where did I see this before? Oh, why is this person waving her hand that way? What's she looking at? Then we are actually conjuring up certain memories of our past. When we look at the photo, our interaction with it, that is the way we interpret the photo, interpret the action, and the reaction of the activity, reaction to the setting, provides a certain information that's actually valuable to the coaches or the educators, counselors, because it unearths a deeper unconscious values or related expectations that we have articulated when we interact with these photos. So the unconscious map that we use to make sense of things around us, whether the world in general or maybe just inside our head, is formed by a combination of our personal, familiar, cultural, societal backgrounds. So through all these things, we frame the filters we use to define the world we see. And this is because this is all they know, and this is all they can say in their engagement with a photo. And therefore, it is very powerful for therapy or for development. So when viewers are trying to figure out what this photo is all about, they're actually constructing is their own meaning towards these photos, what they're looking at it. In this case, they would probably think, oh, this is a young child. When I was young, did I do something like that? Where is this place? Does it look familiar? And we're thinking of the past when we're young in a similar setting, we did certain action or we were fooling around. And what does that mean for them? In that discussion and in that, I guess, the narrative, we're actually constructing a certain meaning of this worldview through a photo. How is that important for educators, coaches, parents, or leaders? In my work, I found this process to be very powerful and very insightful, not just for me as a business leader leading in a team discussion or as a coach or as a trainer. It is not only insightful for me, it is insightful for the viewers as well, because they do not realize that the stories they're narrating through the pictures were actually selectively projected by themselves. So they are bringing their own inner reality through the conversation, through the use of a photo. And with that, I am receiving so much more information. Likewise, for the viewers. So as they talked about the pictures, as I described the details, they're actually interpreting the details on this picture. They're bringing their own reality. They are bringing their own insights to the same image. So few viewers will actually bring in different interpretation or awareness that they have from the same picture. And we're going to get a wealth of discussion through one medium, through one photo, that everyone's bringing their meaning, they're bringing their interpretation to the question using a photo to uncover that. And that is really, really powerful. So for counselors or for teachers, this reflection through a photo is actually pretty powerful process for inner healing or perhaps the self-actualization as they articulate the images that's supposed to represent them or supposed to interpret the situation. So I've seen some reflection through photos to be a powerful process for healing, for actualization, and self-worth. So let's focus a little bit more on what I mean. The projective interactive technique that I have just briefly explained, which I will share more in our next session, we found it to be a very safe way for viewers to encounter the issues because we present their problem through a photo form. And they use the photos to just describe the details. Remember, I mentioned that the articulation or the description, observation of photos are really the inner reality. They are actually projecting their own meaning based on the past experience or the past memories that they have. So they bring all that through a mere observation of a photo image. And the more they communicate, the more observation they can make on their photos, the clearer the meaning became for them and for the counselors. But in the whole process, because they are just merely discussing about their photos, they realize, or they're unconscious, that the perceptions were actually never been devalued or been judged by others because they're just merely talking about the picture. And therefore, it became a very safe space for them to confront with the issue. A very nice development from photo observation is that the viewers begin to understand that there are different viewpoints from different people towards the same photo. In a discussion within a group, confronted with the same image, there could be so many different perspectives of the same topic or the same through the same photos. Then they realize that they could actually widen the perspective towards people, that there are actually more and more points of view towards situation, towards the environment, towards certain actions in the life. And it lends itself very nicely to clarity on their own action. It also brings certain clarity on the understanding that they are more willing to accept different viewpoints and different perceptions. So let's go back to this photo now. What is your viewpoint on this photo? How would you title this photo? Look closely at the details. You may want to take a look at perhaps the background and not just the foreground. Take in more information to this picture. Perhaps you want to zoom in on certain corners of this image that connects with you. Examine your emotional reaction when you look at this picture. This is a little exercise to help you understand photo observation and to practice relating to photos for self-reflection. I'm going to give you a couple moments to try that out on your own. So now we're going to wrap up today's session. And I'd like to invite you pick a photo from this group here that connects with what you have experienced in today's session. Maybe you want to take up a phone and snap a photo of the selected card so that you can use it and look at it closely for your reflection. Once you have selected a card, observe the photo. I will ask a series of questions to help you see more. Firstly, do not pay attention to the word on that card. Have you selected? All right. You may want to write down these questions that help you reflect later on. So the first question, what are the elements inside the photos? Describe the facts. You might want to say, oh, this is a pair of shoes, it's white color, it is sitting nicely on the ground. It reminds me of perhaps a shoe that I used to wear when I was young. So just describe the elements very factually. Now, the second question. What are the connections between those elements you describe with what you have experienced today? What are the connections between those elements with what you have heard or experienced today? And the third question, what do the connections means to you? What do the connections mean to you? Take a moment and pen down those thoughts. Let's recap. 90% of information is received through visual. So we are able to receive more and understand more when we're given a visual content rather than text. When we use visual, we activate the right brain, and therefore we are more creative. We're able to think outside the box. And when we do that, we also get more insights because we're doing the cerebral tango. Remember? And when we create a narrative around the images, we're projecting meaning from deep inside. So photos connects with us in an emotional way through the filtered memories. We still talk about using a photo to provide a safe space because they are just merely observing a photo and describing the photos. And through the description, they're actually giving you a lot more information on what is going on inside. So I hope you've enjoyed the session with me today. And I thank you for spending your time with me. If you'd like to connect with me or to find out more information, here are my details. Take a shot of the QR code if you'd like to connect with me through LinkedIn. Or if you wish to know how to use phototherapy in your work, maybe you have some questions or what you've heard today, feel free to email me. Perhaps you want to know more about training programs on how you can include phototherapy into your work. You want to be trained in that. So contact me and write to me so that I can connect you to the local workshops or the local training. As I mentioned in the very beginning, that we also provide career coach, certification program, and career assessment tools as part of our training work in Asia. So I'm more than happy to speak to you or to connect with you through LinkedIn or through email to give you more information around that. So I'd like to thank Sonia again for inviting me to this program. And I'd like to invite you to the part 2 of this session, Phototherapy as a coaching tool, where I'll share with you a very interactive process that you could use. So it's going to be it's going to be a very experiential session in next month's program. So I'll see you then. Goodbye.